So we're here in the Australian Rainforest section of the garden, which is another really special part of the garden. Only recently it has received awards for the way that the boardwalk was sort of put down, and in such a sympathetic way to the garden itself. But Tim obviously will be able to tell you more about that as well.
Thanks, Duncan. Yes, the Australian Rainforest Collection, and we'll walk into the garden. We have interesting plants here, like macadamia nuts, which is a very well-known Australian species.
How long till
food
they're
plant.
ready to eat, Tim?
When they start to fall on the ground, you know that they're definitely edible. Yeah, and so I quite often crack them open and have a try.
Yeah.
So this rainforest collection is unique. It is a collection in here that we have mainly tried to focus on palms, like Australian palm diversity, Australian fern diversity, and epiphytic plants. So they're plants that grow in trees, or we have, you may be able to see an orchid growing up there, or we have suspended ferns as well.
Are they? What are these, Tim?
This is a Linospatix. This is common name is a walking stick palm from northern New South Wales and Queensland. And these fruits are actually edible and dispersed by birds mainly.
It's probably worth mentioning at this point, though, that neither you nor your students should go around trying the fruits and berries that are sort of around, not just in the system garden, but really any sort of botanical garden, because quite often they will have some sort of toxicity, and so it can leave you rather ill. So it's just
or dead.
Yeah, or dead.
But we might even touch on some of those a bit later as well.
Yeah.
And now look, there's some interesting. We diversity is key in my mind with being a curator of the system garden, and it's important to have different examples of ferns or palms and epiphytes. So commonly we might know epiphytes as, we've seen orchids growing up there in trees. Ferns are epiphytes, but then we also have trees that are epiphytes. So this is a really interesting adaptation of this ficus watkinsiana, known from northern Queensland. So it's a parasite that is in the wild, in habitat, attaches itself to trees from the seed that goes through the gut of a bird. The bird deposits it on a branch, and then those roots, the energy that must be in those seeds for those roots to then go straight down to the forest floor where it's nutrient rich. And as soon as that happens, this tree will start to overtake its host over time. And so this is commonly known as a strangler fig. And it's a very typical plant in an Australian rainforest. Of course, there's lots of different food and medicinal plants in the rainforest. This specimen we have here is Davidsonia purans, and it's an interesting species from northern Queensland, because it has it's a coniferous flowering tree, and coniferous means it flowers up and down the trunk, and that's where the fruit are born as well. An interesting symbiotic relationship that these trees have, or an important factor of them being a rainforest tree, is that they are a food plant for cassowaries, and it's thought that the fruit was easy for the cassowaries to pick off the trunk of the tree rather than trying to reach up into the canopy to collect fruit.
But even, Tim, like if you imagine if there's fruit, say, growing on something like this, and the cassowaries kind of grab it, it'd be moving, it'd be pushing it away, whereas the trunk is nice and sturdy, so it makes it much easier for the cassowary to feed. And I think what's interesting about comparing the Strangler fig over here and the Davidson's plum over here is that they're both what we can, I guess, define as symbiotic relationships, but this is a parasitic symbiotic relationship. This is a mutualistic relationship where both the tree and the animal benefit from the relationship.
Yeah. A very typical feature in rainforest too are big leaves. Big leaves allow the plant to get more light in a dense canopied environment.
Maybe we'll have a look at this.
Yeah. So, well, what I should say also is another really important factor with rainforests are fungi, and the forest floor and the decomposition of and how important that is for nutrients, for filtering, the interconnectedness of fungi that attaches to other trees, and quite often those fungi assist trees with their nutrient intake. And they help break down, wood and matter. Behind me here is Brachychiton discolor. It is a fantastic tree that has these beautiful, these beautiful velvety flowers that just come out this time of year. It's a Queensland tree. Brachychiton is, I believe it's only an Australian genus, and we have a collection of about 5 or 6 different species in the garden, so we might even look at another one of those later.
And they're really quite interesting trees because they all seem to have something really kind of unique about them. For example, the Queensland bottle tree, which there's an example of here in the garden, has that really large bulbous trunk, which I think leads to people confusing it with the boab. But I guess that's an example of convergent evolution, where two species in different places, but with similar sorts of environmental conditions, grow, they adapt and evolve very similarly. Did you want to, Tim, just quickly, while we're near the pond, have a chat about some of the fauna that we find?
Yeah, well, this is quite interesting. If you can see, well, you probably can't, but this is, well, look, right, we can get that. See right there, tadpoles. So this is probably one place, the one place in the university that has the greatest concentration of frogs. It's a moist, wet environment. It's the native brown Victorian tree frog, I believe it's Littoria ewingii. And it is, it's found itself a home here in the Australian rainforest.
They're all at different stages of growth too, Tim. I can see some of them with legs, some without legs. So there's one just quite close to that thing that's popping out of the water there. It's just sitting there. The other thing I notice is that there's a lot of like mosquito larvae and stuff like that in there, which is obviously giving them a food source.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a really interesting. It's been an interesting experiment from a curatorial point of view. When I first, this rainforest has only been here for about 7 or 8 years. It was. It used to only be 3 trees, and since we've increased the diversity of plants in here, we have given a home to insects. We didn't introduce frogs or tadpoles here. They've found their own way here, and then we've been getting a lot more bird diversity as well from owls, nightjars, wrens as well. So we've created a whole little ecosystem, and you can see there.
So they've got rear legs.
It just goes to show that we can create a man-made environment can bring nature back. So that is encouraging in some way.
So Tim was just talking about the fact that there are owls spotted in here. Some of the owls that have been seen in here are boobled powerful owls and tawny frog. Are tawny frogmouths regarded as an owl?
No, they're a nightjar.
They're a nightjar.
Yeah.
But yeah, and in fact, there's research happening. There has been research happening from the School of Design, looking at ways to attract powerful owls to both nest and fledge here in the system garden. So last year and the year before, some of the researchers from the School of Design designed 3D printed blocks that could be put together up high on a eucalypt tree and constructed to mimic a hole that a powerful owl would make use of for nesting and fledging. And the reason they have to go to that level of trouble is because powerful owls have very specific requirements about the sorts of spaces that they need to nest and fledge. They usually need incredibly old trees where hollows have sort of become apparent, and yeah, there's just not that many of them.
In an urban environment, it's quite often when the trees have to get to a certain age to create these hollows, and it's when those trees get to that age and show that they have got hollows, that in an urban environment they are almost deemed a bit of a hazard to the community because of potential limb fall or whatever. So it's a really clever and scientific way of trying to reintroduce and have an environment where we can still have diversity of bird species as well.
All right, shall we continue through the forest?
Yeah. I'll point out here a palm species as we go through. This is Livistona australis. It's the only palm species actually in Victoria. It comes from the fringe of the edge, the border of Victoria and New South Wales. So diversity in the garden is, we've got some lilies flowering here, and I do hope and encourage you all to find the time to come here and to check it out in your own time, because not only is it a peaceful environment, there's lots to see, and you'll be able to hopefully reconnect with some of the things we've been discussing about today.